Hello and welcome, Loftsiders, to another edition of the NFL team previews for 2025. We've reached a point where we're on the New England Patriots. And for those of you who don't know, the New England Patriots are my favorite team. I was born and raised in this area. I didn't always root when I was a kid, I always rooted for the best logoed team in a game. So if you didn't have a cool logo, I didn't root for you. But New England Patriots, I am a New England Patriots season ticket holder. I have skin in the game as far as the Patriots is concerned because of the season tickets and everything else like that. But it doesn't mean I'm going to be all happy-go-lucky about everything that they've done from the end of 2024 to going into this season. So we'll look at that. It's the fourth team out of the AFC East. After this, we're going to be going to the AFC North as I check my notes. And then we'll go back into alphabetical order. I saved the Patriots for last for this reason in particular, because I knew I was going to have to find a way to be impartial with some of this stuff. I would love to say that I think they're the best team in the AFC East, as I've mentioned in other videos. The Bills are by far the best team in the AFC East. So between the Patriots, the Jets, and the Dolphins, we're probably fighting for second, third, and fourth. Now, second place can work and possibly get wild card spots. Do I think the Patriots have done enough to get there? It's really close. It's close. I mean, between the three teams, I think that the Jets have probably the most rebuilding. I think the Dolphins have the biggest upside with the talent they have, but injury-prone team. As I mentioned in their video, I thought they were going to be a 6 to 7 win team this year. Obviously, that is all barring injuries and stuff like that. I just don't think Tua can stay healthy. And for the Patriots, massive turnover. And where are they going to go from there? So the New England Patriots last year finished 4-13. At one point had the number one overall pick going into the final week of the season, and Joe Milton carried that team to against a backup Buffalo Bills team, and they dropped to fourth. I would have rather them have the number one overall pick because I thought they were going to really go after Travis Hunter. From there, I also thought that they could trade it. I thought teams would be willing to trade up to get that number one overall pick, and I thought you could get a pretty good haul for that. Like, I thought the Titans would trade up. I thought the Giants might trade up. I thought all these different teams might trade up, and there was going to be a market for that you're going to get a haul of picks and everything else like that for that number one overall pick to drop down and still be able to get a tackle and everything else. That was the hope going at the end of the last year. And as I said, Joe Milton had a great game, and albeit against backups for Buffalo, and it ruined all of that. Now, they still had the fourth overall pick, but they immediately fired Jerod Mayo as their head coach, and they replaced him with Mike Vrabel. It was the worst kept secret in football. Everybody knew that Mike Vrabel was going to be the head coach of the New England Patriots as soon as Jerod Mayo was fired. And it was almost immediately after that game. And I think the part of it was that the ownership wanted them to lose. And there's not much more you can do. You had your third string quarterback in. You had all that different stuff. So, I mean, you can't tell professional players to just go out and lose. That's never going to happen in any sport. You know, you can tank as best you can, trade your best players away, and then see what you have with young players. But those young players are going to want to come up, and they're going to want to prove themselves. Joe Milton was one of them. They had one of the worst passing attacks in 2024. Whoever was the quarterback, whether it was Jacoby Brissett to start off with, or with Drake Maye towards the end of the year, which Drake Maye had flashes of greatness, even in his rookie year, can move the ball down the field, didn't necessarily pass the ball overly well last year, just simply because they had the one of, if not the worst offensive line in football. He threw for 2,200 yards, 15 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Again, I'm shocked that he only had 10 interceptions. But growing pains and everything else like that in a system that you could clearly see wasn't great. The defense regressed a ton from Jerod Mayo. Players didn't seem to care towards the end. It was a firing that I think needed to happen. And we heard all the different stuff coming at the end of last season with, there's a chance Jerod Mayo doesn't come back. And, fans and everything else like that thought that okay, the Krafts aren't going to admit they made a mistake, and immediately Robert Kraft came out and said he made a mistake. He's made quite a few in his public appearance life. The hiring of Jerod Mayo to come out and say, hey, this was on me. There wasn't an extensive search after Bill Belichick left. It was Jerod Mayo. That was the head coach in waiting. He was looking at other jobs, and Kraft wanted to keep him around. He really liked Jerod. I just don't think he was ready. He wasn't a coordinator of any sort. He wasn't anything else. I think they thought they could kind of piggyback off of that Patriots way mantra for a few more years. Jerod Mayo wasn't ready. And it's nothing against Jerod Mayo. It's nothing against the Krafts or the Patriots organization. But this is why you do those searches. And even this is the scary part about Mike Vrabel. And Mike Vrabel has proved to be an NFL coach, head coach, with his time with Tennessee. I thought he got fired way too early with Tennessee. But it's still one of those, this is who the Krafts identified early. They interviewed other people, and, a lot of it was kind of just the smoke and mirrors and doing, the Rooney Rule and everything else like that. But the Patriots got the guy in Mike Vrabel. They've been 3 years without the playoffs. Obviously, prior to all of this and Drake Maye and everything else, Mac Jones failed miserably here in New England. But even after the offseason they had where they spent the most money, they still have the most money in cap room available going into next year. So there's still time for them to go out and get players and everything else. Obviously, as we've heard right now, such as players like Terry McLaurin and Micah Parsons have asked for trades from their respective teams, the Commanders and the Cowboys. The Patriots have the ability to go get one of them. You're going to have to give up draft picks. You're going to have to give up some assets, and you're going to have to pay some money. Terry McLaurin wants $33 million. That's what's been reported right now. That puts him in the upper echelon of wide receivers in the league. I don't necessarily think he deserves top dollar there, but he's played very well for a very bad Washington football team / Commanders / Redskins team for a while. And I think he deserves some money from them. But I think if he was to get traded, I think we're talking 28, 29, a few million less per year might get it done. But again, you're going to have to give up a lot to get him. The Commanders obviously don't want to give up McLaurin. And the Cowboys under Jerry Jones, whatever is left in that mind of his, he obviously doesn't want to give that up as well. He already said he's not bothered by the request to leave. And he's not bothered by saying things to his teams. And again, we're getting kind of off track. But there's the ability to make these moves towards the end of this preseason and everything else like that. But as for the people that have come in, importance, obviously we've talked about Mike Vrabel. He was the ex-Titans coach, obviously an ex-Patriots player. Stephon Diggs is your new number one wide receiver. Has looked good coming off of surgery from last year, and that was an ACL. So he's looked pretty good with that. I think he's still going to be questionable going into week one, but he's looked good. I think he'll probably play week one. Mac Hollins comes over from the Bills. He's the other wide receiver or new wide receiver in that room outside of any rookies. 31 receptions, 378 yards, had 5 touchdowns last year with, Josh Allen as his quarterback. So not great numbers, but again, veteran leadership, a guy that can probably stretch the field a little bit. And he shows up to everything at the facility barefoot. So, he obviously has to be good, right? Morgan Moses is your new right tackle coming over from the Jets. 34 years old, I believe. I'm going to double check, but 34 years old, so veteran leader on that right side. Not necessarily the move I wanted them to make at that right tackle position or any tackle position or any offensive line position because he's 34 years old. But he's played well in his plus 30 years, 31, 32, 33. Obviously, with the Jets last year, you saw him a couple of times. Harold Landry comes over from the Titans. Titans released him. He's probably going to be your starting outside linebacker, edge rusher, BC guy. Love it. Milton Williams got a ton of money from the New England Patriots. And Milton Williams won a Super Bowl with the Eagles last year. Had 5 sacks, still 26. He's the anchor on this defensive line. He's going to play that left side defensive end area. He was the big spend from the Eagles. They got Robert Spillane, who just has a nose for the football, will have 100-plus tackles every year or be close to it. He had 91 last year, so there we go. I thought he had over 100. But he'll be in that 100-tackle range. He'll start. Again, one of those guys that came kind of out of nowhere, played great for the Raiders the last few years. Western Michigan guy in his 7th season. I don't believe he was drafted. He was an undrafted free agent. So again, one of those hungry guys that always wants to improve every single year. I think money well spent on him as well. Carlton Davis will play opposite of Christian Gonzalez. I like that move as well. And then your draft, Will Campbell was the 4th overall pick in the first round out of LSU. He's got short arms. He's got short arms. He's got short arms. I can tell you from the media here with the New England Patriots is the first few practices he kind of struggled against, those like Keon White types, those, Christian Barmore, Harold Landry, struggled a little bit early on, but has kind of found all these different things. And he said something the other day, and you're going to hear me repeat this, or I have repeated it in my real life, but, Will Campbell got asked the question, what did it feel like to start losing some of these battles against veterans and everything else like that? And he said the offensive coordinator, Josh McDaniels, is also the offensive coordinator again for the New England Patriots, so some familiarity with that. And I'm excited to see what Drake Maye does with that. But anyway, Will Campbell basically said that Josh McDaniels told him, you either learn or you win. There's no losing. You can't dwell on that losing. You can't do that. You have to learn from it and get better or just win outright. And it makes sense. I mean, he's got a great, he said during the draft he was going to die to protect his quarterback. That's the attitude that you needed in the Patriots locker room. The guys like that want to do that want to be able to play at the highest level and be successful, not settle for things. That's the problem the Patriots have had over the last few years. Once Mac Jones checked out, he checked out hard, and it wasn't close. He was making stupid mistakes. He was making everything else like that. And you can even see him in Jacksonville now. He makes stupid mistakes, and you want players to understand that you have to get better week in and week out. Some of the outs, Jacoby Brissett goes to the Cardinals. David Andrews retired. He's now within the organization itself, undrafted center. Obviously, they went out and got Jared Wilson as well. Dedrick Wise, defensive end, went to the Commanders. Juwan Bentley, one of their leading tacklers, got injured early last year, was a big, big missing piece for that defense. Hasn't signed with anybody, which is surprising to me. One of those ball hawk, again, tacklers. Jonathan Jones is also with the Commanders now. He was a cornerback. Devon Godshaw, the Saints. Joe Milton was traded to the Cowboys to be the backup to Dak Prescott, which should be interesting because Dak Prescott can't stay healthy either. So Joe Milton can throw the ball a mile. He's not the most accurate. He played very well the last week, but it would be interesting to see the Cowboys with Joe Milton as a quarterback. Now, better weapons and everything else, but it just seems very interesting to me that this was the trade that they got. And again, it wasn't, you weren't going to get much for him. He was a 6th-round draft pick. Joe Sly, your kicker for the last few years, it's over with the Titans. So the big questions are, can Drake Maye continue on the promise that he showed last year? Sophomore slumps are a thing. We've seen them for many, 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 many professional players. CJ Stroud kind of had a sophomore slump last year. So, even ones that we thought are going to be great. We're in that position that can Drake Maye continue to take those steps? That's going to be the deciding factor. I think Drake Maye has some of the best upside from the 3 quarterbacks that were chosen at the top of the draft last year. Caleb Williams, I think, has a high ceiling, but I don't know necessarily that he's going to get there. Jaden Daniels looked great last year, obviously. I think he's probably close to his ceiling. And then Drake Maye had a lot of stuff that people said that he had this high ceiling and he could be the best quarterback out of this draft. and everything else. Obviously thrown into a terrible situation last year. I think he's in a much better one this year. Different offensive line. Obviously, I mentioned Will Campbell, Morgan Moses, Garrett Bradbury is your center now. That David Andrews is gone. You drafted Jarrett Wilson later in the draft out of Georgia. Has looked really good, and I think is probably being moved over to guard and may start week 1. So that's something to keep an eye on as well. Can the offense be better? And Drake Maye lead them. He obviously has Stephon Diggs now, Mac Hollins. They got Kyle Williams in the draft, who I said in the pre-draft thing I didn't like. And he's looked really good, and I have to support him. But he looks really good. So he was the wide receiver out of Washington State. What will Mike Vrabel bring to this team? What we've seen with the media now, he's already kind of snippy with the Boston media, and he told one reporter, "I just answered that question. You obviously weren't listening for the past 5 minutes. You were tweeting, whatever." So he has that. He started off very friendly with everybody, and now that the football season's kind of ramped up, he's in that Mike Vrabel like, "Hey, we're gonna get better every day, and either you're gonna figure it out, or we're gonna find somebody that will." So, I mean, that's just his attitude. His attitude has been like that with Tennessee as well. Is this the Patriots way again? I don't think so. I think Mike Vrabel understands that he has to do his own thing. You can't depend on the Belichick tree, if you will, or anything else like that. Belichick's gone. He's in North Carolina. He has his own set of problems in the public eye. I'm not going to get into all of that. I'm not going to get into the Kraft versus Belichick stuff. There's an episode a few episodes ago that I talk about it. It's ruining his legacy, and he's the greatest, coach we've ever seen, and all of this stuff is ruining his legacy, and I'm sad to see it. So Mike Vrabel has to do his own thing. The running back room looks a little different as well. Ramondre Stevenson still is at the top of the depth chart as of right now. Travion Henderson out of Ohio State, they picked in round 2, which I thought was surprising. I didn't necessarily think they were going to go that high on a running back, but I think he brings you the out of the backfield catching, can run the ball really well. I think he's probably going to be the best running back out of this draft class, I'm hoping. Larson, I'll pronounce it differently there, came in as an undrafted free agent from UC Davis and is one of those like Danny Woodhead type players that can do a whole bunch of stuff, can run the football, can catch it, is kind of like that spark plug him in, and he can drop out to be a wide receiver and everything else like that. Interesting undrafted free agent. I think probably will make this roster on opening week. So can the running back room continue to grow with these new faces? Because obviously they leaned very heavily on the running backs last year. Ramondre Stevenson had some fumbling trouble. That's the problem that he had last year, and he's kind of continued it in preseason a little bit, which is alarming, but that's why Travion Henderson was drafted. You still have Antonio Gibson on this roster. I'm not saying they're going to get rid of Stevenson. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if that becomes a problem, Mike Vrabel will bench him. That's just what it is. And are the wide receivers better? Is this wide receiver room better for what they've done? People thought they were going to go out and really kind of go after a wide receiver. Stephon Diggs, alarming to me because I also didn't want Stephon Diggs on this roster. Here he is, 31 years old, coming off an ACL tear. It's gonna be. I think it's gonna be better. I want to see Jalen Polk step up. I want to see Javon Baker step up. I want to see Pop Douglas step up. I want to see the guys, Kayshon Boutte, Kyle Williams, Kendrick Bourne, Afton Chisholm, another undrafted free agent that everybody's fallen in love with here in New England. I want these guys to step up. I want to see them be successful. I hate the stigma of the Patriots cannot draft wide receivers. They just have not been very good at it, at least not for a while. So we'll see what happens with that. But I think the defense has better players on it. Milton Williams, like I mentioned, Harold Landry. You brought back Christian Ellis, who really stepped up last year as kind of the fill-in linebacker, got paid this offseason to stay with the team. Robert Spillane, Carlton Davis, Craig Woodson, another rookie out of Cal. I think this team's going to be better. I think this team is probably going to be an 8-9 team, probably between second and third place. I think the Jets are going to finish last in the AFC East. I think the Patriots will finish third, and I think the Dolphins will be second. And that's me kind of mentioning that with the fact that Tua is healthy. If Tua is healthy, that team will be in second place, probably close to a wild card, if not the wild card. I think the Patriots will be 8-9, 9-8, 10-7, somewhere in that range. 7-10 to 10-7 is what I'm going to say for the Patriots this year. But they still have the most money. If they don't make the playoffs, you get another high draft pick to put something around them, probably a younger wide receiver that is at the top of that draft class. This team has the ability to make the playoffs. The talent is here. Will it work out? Don't know. That's why they play the games, right? But I see the talent here. I see what they're trying to build. I see what Vrabel wants to do. I see all that stuff. Can they do it? Can this team take the steps? That's what Vrabel's not going anywhere after this year. Even if they crash to 4-13 again, Vrabel's not going anywhere. They still have money. They still have all that stuff that they can do to make this team better for next year. The thing that we're, as fans here, that we're looking at is Drake Maye continuing to progress. I'm okay with missing the playoffs again. I am. I just need to see the steps in the right direction. You can struggle. You can all that, this doesn't have to be the final product. But if you can improve the team and show the glimpses and go forward, I don't think anybody in New England's going to mind. You're going to have the yahoos that come on the radio and go, this team sucks. Whatever people sound like here in Massachusetts. I think they're on the cusp of and just barely missing the playoff window. I'm going to give them that next year. Again, they shouldn't go 4-13 again. They should win at least 7 games, at least from what I'm looking at. However, is there enough talent in the places you need it? Wide receiver was a big one. Stephon Diggs, great. Mac Hollins, great. Kyle Williams drafted, great. They thought this was fixed last year with the drafting of Jalen Polk and Javon Baker. And they thought Kendrick Bourne was going to be better. They thought Pop Douglas was going to take a step. Kayshon Boutte took a step, but not a big one from where he was, considering he was basically benched the whole year from Belichick the year before. Can this team take those steps? Can the players that don't have not ton of potential, but ton of upside, or people thinking they're going to do a whole lot, like Kayshon Boutte, there's not a whole lot there that people are going, well, he's going to be a 100-catch guy. Can he at least get 70 catches? Can he get 60 catches? Where is his ceiling? That's the thing that the Patriots need to answer this year. The coaching staff needs to put them in all of these places to be successful. We know Josh McDaniels can run an offense. Can he run an offense without Tom Brady? That's the other question. That's where we are for the AFC East. So I think the Bills are going to finish first. I think the Dolphins will finish second. I think the Patriots will finish third. And I think the Jets will come in last in the AFC East for this year. So visit us at loftsidebantr@gmail.com for any emails. Please, Patriots fans, let me know what you think. Loftside Bantr, that's Bantr, so loftsidebantr.com for the website. Go see that. Go see all our things. Visit us on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the places, iHeartRadio, all the places you can find podcasts. We're on it. So I would love to hear from you guys. All right. Have a good night.